Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. So recently there's a significant amount of noise surrounding DeAndre Hopkins and his trade rumors. Let me tell you guys why it is vital that the Arizona Cardinals keep DeAndre Hopkins and do not trade him. So DeAndre Hopkins is going to be 31 years old entering the 2023 season, and I know a lot of Cardinals fans at this point are saying we need a bit of a reset. We need to just trade DeAndre Hopkins, get as much assets and value for him as humanly possible, and just kind of reset our roster. The issue with that is our roster at the moment basically has no receivers outside of our three main receivers. So obviously we have DeAndre Hopkins, we have Marquise Brown, who has had trouble staying healthy, let's be completely honest. And then we have Rondale Moore, who has also really had trouble staying healthy. But besides that, for Marquise Brown to be our tallest, biggest, most physically imposing receiver last year when DeAndre Hopkins was out really proves that we need a big possession receiver. We need a guy who offers Kyler Murray a bit of a margin for error. We need a guy who doesn't need the ball dropped in a keyhole every single time for him to catch the ball. And this really is the case with very small body receivers like a Rondale Moore, like a Marquise Brown. Also, DeAndre Hopkins has been absolutely incredible while on the field for the Arizona Cardinals in his 3 years in Arizona. And when he hasn't been on the field, this offense has been a completely different story. We started 2 years ago 8-0. We were roaring. DeAndre Hopkins was playing incredible. He went down for injury, and then the rest of the season just played out miserably. Our offense can never get in that rhythm because not only do we not have that safety blanket, but we don't have that big time play ability from our number one receiver. So in 3 seasons in Arizona, he's played 35 games. Let me read you guys off his per game stats in 35 games. That's a pretty big sample size. He has 9 targets per game. So that makes up a significant amount of offense in 35 games. 9 targets per game. I mean, that's a number one receiver right there. 6.3 catches a game, 77 yards, and 0.5 touchdowns a game. So he's basically scoring for us every other game in an offense that has had struggles with consistency. Now, I get what you're saying. He's about to be on the wrong side of 30. But the thing is about DeAndre Hopkins and why I am very confident in his skill set going forward, it's not like he's this Marquise Brown burner whose athleticism is going to drop off once he hits the age of 30. He's a guy that's very indicative of having a very long, successful career because of that skill set, because of that lack of physical tools that jump out to you on paper. But once he hits the football field, he's an incredible football player. That's why DeAndre Hopkins wasn't a top 10 pick in the NFL draft and he fell to the late first round. He's a guy that just has such an incredible feel for the game. Every single time there's a zone coverage, it feels like he breaks the zone so easily. He's so good at dropping into that soft spot, into the zone, being that safety blanket over the middle of the field and on the outside numbers of the field as well. He has great hands and incredible body control. I don't care how young the corner is he's going up against. When there's a 50-50 ball, the body control, the hands, the strength from DeAndre Hopkins, I'm trusting him over even the youngest, best corners in the league like Sauce Gardner-Johnson. Still, give me DeAndre Hopkins in that 50-50 ball situation. He's great after the catch. Again, he's not significantly reliant on his athleticism, so you don't associate a guy who's not crazy athletic to be great after the catch. But DeAndre Hopkins is so shifty. He's really good at breaking tackles, stiff arms, and he just has such a great feel for the field. So often in goal line situations, we'd throw DeAndre Hopkins a screen, he'd make 2 guys miss, and then he'd walk into the end zone. That's something that the Arizona Cardinals would desperately miss if he left our team. The Cardinals really have been made fun of the last couple of years with Cliff Kingsbury in this air raid era we're coming out of being the softest team in the NFL, of playing quote-unquote pretty boy football. Well, DeAndre Hopkins is a guy in a new system, in a Jonathan Gannon era where we want to play smash mouth football. He's a guy who can perfectly transition us into that period because he's a great willing blocker as well. You look at a guy like Rondale Moore and Marquise Brown, not to say they aren't willing blockers, but they're small out there. So to implement this power run run game that we want to implement, we need a big body receiver who's a good blocker on the outside. Our new offensive coordinator is coming from Cleveland, and a reason that Cleveland run game worked so well last year with Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt is because you had guys like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Amari Cooper being great blockers on the outside for their running backs. So we need a guy like DeAndre Hopkins to offer great blocking for James Conner, for potentially a rookie running back in here. And I wanted to end the video with a point to remind Arizona Cardinals fans of a receiver with a very similar skill set who had a great career in their mid to late 30s. Of course, I'm talking about Larry legend, Larry Fitzgerald, guys. In 2015, by far our most successful season since we lost the Super Bowl was 2015. We went to the NFC Championship game and lost to the Panthers. Who was our number one receiver that year? It was Larry Fitzgerald. He was absolutely incredible. He was 32 years old that season, so 2 years older than DeAndre Hopkins is right now. He had 1,215 yards, 9 touchdowns, again, a 13-3 record, and he was our number one receiver. DeAndre Hopkins in 2 years could absolutely do that in a quick rebuild for the Cardinals. In 2016, at 33 years old, he led the NFL in catches with 107. What did he do the next year? In 2017, when he was 34 years old, Larry Fitzgerald had his record amount in catches with 109 catches, and he had 1,156 yards and 6 touchdowns. So if Larry Fitzgerald can have an absolutely incredible career past 30 years old, have 3 years of being the number one receiver on a top-seeded team in the NFC, is that more valuable, guys, than a second-round pick and a fourth-round pick to get for DeAndre Hopkins? No way. I don't think a second-round pick in his first 3 or 4 years is going to have 1,000 yards, 100 catches, and 5 touchdowns like I think DeAndre Hopkins can. So to me, that's really the main point of this video. We are not going to get adequate value for DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins is a guy who can be the number one receiver on the best team in the NFL for the next 3 to 4 years. Is that going to happen for the Cardinals? No, we're not going to be the best team in the NFL, but we can make a good run and a quick rebuild. And by the time we do that, DeAndre Hopkins could still be a significant contributor to a championship team.